This commercial Quality to the World features local companies that are already successfully exporting their products. A recent survey of almost 1,000 other hunter businesses has revealed many more could be selling their locally made products overseas. Some manufacturers believed their products were unsuitable for export or the cost would be prohibitive. Tony Burleson and fellow students from Newcastle TAFE have compiled a how-to guide. The 18-month project was part of their management course, but it has practical application for the local business community.
Well, the first thing that the booklet does is it provides a self-assessment. So it does, if you perceive your product to be unsuitable, this self-assessment will give you the knowledge to say yes, it is unacceptable or yes, it is suitable.
The pamphlet is in production and should be available from Newcastle TAFE next month. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
It was a devastating blow to the intellectually and physically disabled students of Newcastle Public Special School when their camping centre was deliberately destroyed in April 1993. A rebuilding project was launched last year, with Newcastle University architecture students lending a helping hand to design a brand new facility. When Hunter Group Training offered its services, work was able to begin on the $350,000 complex, featuring dormitories, recreation rooms and undercover playgrounds. The project offering training and jobs through DEET for more than 40 long-term unemployed people.
Most of these fellas here have never had a hammer in their hand, and in 6 months, the skills that these fellas have learned, they've been very proud of.
Well, that's one of the main things, is picking up the skills and just getting yourself going again, yeah.
If somebody's out there, needs any labourers or anything like that, give Hunter Group a call and they'll get in contact with us.
The whole project is due to be finished around the middle of next year and will stand as a result of a huge community effort.
But all the bricks were donated, the gyprock has been donated, the timber we got at a cheap rate. There has been a lot of community involvement.
This purpose-built rescue unit was the first to be commissioned into the state's ambulance service back in the early 60s. The vehicle has been painstakingly restored, all the parts and labour donated by the Central Coast community of Point Clare. Supporters like Gary O'Callaghan were responsible for getting the vehicle on the road 34 years ago today.
I just can't believe that this old rescue van, which has been found and resurrected, literally looks better than the original, I think.
But the old has made way for the new. This $150,000 modern rescue unit was officially commissioned today. It's the only one of its kind in the world, acting as both a mini ambulance as well as a rescue vehicle. The back section holds the latest equipment. The air-conditioned front half provides room for patients to be stabilised and treated. An open day will be held at the station tomorrow. The public welcome to come and look back in time.
More than 250,000 tyres went up in the blaze, first reported about 11 last night. About 60 firefighters from the New South Wales and Lake Macquarie bushfire brigades fought the blaze. A bulldozer was used to help push other tyres away from the fire, but about half of the stockpile was destroyed. Firefighters also had to contend with snakes escaping from the blaze. At 9 this morning, after 300,000 litres of water and 800 litres of foam, the battle was won. This latest arson attack on the dump comes less than a week after the Lake Macquarie City Council received a grant to clear the area. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
The Aboriginal Medical Service in Newcastle has a permanent home. This building, formerly a children's hearing clinic, has undergone a facelift and is now a community health centre for Aboriginal people.
Yeah, there's about 10,000 Aboriginal people now. Lower, Upper Hunter, Newcastle, Port Stephens and Central Coast. So it's a lot of Aboriginal people.
It will offer a range of services including dental and general health care, but according to Mr Smith, the centre will also cater for the special needs of the Koori community.
The cultural side of it plays a big difference. And so we look at it holistically. We look at overcrowding and housing, water, sewage, whatever makes up a good environment for a person to live healthy.
Mr Smith says the local Aboriginal Health Service has developed a strong link with the Hunter Area Health Service and hopes this will encourage other districts to do the same. There are plans to build a Koori hostel at the John Hunter Hospital, similar to the Ronald McDonald House.
Chasing funds now to erect a hostel type of thing for Aboriginal people coming with relatives from out of the other parts of the state.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News. For 3 days the jury deliberated, but in the words of the foreman, it was highly unlikely they'd reach agreement on all 4 charges against 73-year-old Norman Tace. They found Mr Tace not guilty of attempting to murder Senior Constable Gary Coates in December last year. The court heard last week that Senior Constable Coates and Sergeant Bruce Coffey had gone to a house in Fathom Place at Salamander Bay after Norman Tace had breached a bail undertaking that he stay away from the area. The court was told that Mr Tace went to the back of a car and removed a shortened .303 calibre rifle, which he pointed at the face of Senior Constable Coates. As Senior Constable Coates pushed the weapon away, it fired. The jury found Mr Tace guilty of using a weapon with the intention of preventing his arrest, but couldn't agree on whether he fired a weapon in a public place or whether he shot at the officer with the intention of preventing his arrest. The Director of Public Prosecutions will consider whether a retrial should be held on those 2 charges. Justice David Hunt will sentence Mr Tace once the DPP has made a decision. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
An 11-hectare site at Glendale owned by the Railways is the land council needs for the synthetic athletics track and facilities. At the moment, Sydney athletes are within 45 minutes of a top-quality track, while athletes in the Hunter region are much worse off.
No athlete in Newcastle or the Hunter or Lake Macquarie has to travel less than 90 minutes to get to an athletics facility. Now, I don't think that's reasonable.
Council has decided to increase pressure on the state government. A task force is being formed to lobby the Transport and Sports Ministers to get the project on track. To convert the bushland to a world-class track will cost up to $4 million, and while Council needs government support, it is also looking for substantial funding from the corporate sector.
Naming rights are certainly an option. Sponsors boards, naming rights on corners of the track.
While Super League had taken an interest in the deal, council hasn't heard from the organisation in 4 months. Robert Gray wouldn't rule out a link. However, with time slipping away, it seems unlikely. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It's one of the worst bottlenecks in the Hunter. But there's been a reprieve for drivers, with $65 million to be spent on a road that steers traffic away from the centre of Charlestown. The 6-kilometre road will run from Charlestown Road at Katara to the Pacific Highway at Windale, with work expected to finish by 1999. It's part of the $114 million allocated to the region's roads, $34 million for the New England Highway, $12 million on the Raymond Terrace bypass and $11.4 million on the duplication of Lenigan's Drive from Minmai to John Renshaw Drive. The pre-election fight over crime has helped the residents of Thornton, with $300,000 to be spent on a new police station. But in health, the Labor Party failed to fulfil its pre-election promise to reopen the Wallsend Hospital for day surgery. Work on Maitland Hospital will continue, with $8 million allocated. And the Metford Railway Station will be finished with the help of $200,000. Winners and losers in education, Maryland and Salamander Bay to get new schools, but Ashtonfield will have to wait. Newcastle's Honeysuckle project has been one of the biggest winners, with an additional $28.7 million. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
For Wisman, the shared award completes a good season for the Falcons coach and goes some way to making up for the disappointment of being eliminated in the quarter-finals. In his 4th year with the club, Wisman has got Newcastle into the playoffs on 2 occasions. He's also played a big role in the development of Tony Jensen, who after being runner-up last year, picked up the Most Improved Player prize.
Yeah, it's good to get recognised by your peers, and the award last night has obviously shown that I'm heading in the right direction and I've had a pretty good year.
But that future direction may not be with the Falcons. After playing with the Boomers and in the All-Star weekend, Jensen has attracted the attention of at least 2 other clubs and will decide which way he'll go in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, obviously Newcastle's probably the front runner still, but who knows at this stage. I mean, it's a silly season, rumours flying. I've heard so many different rumours at the moment that I want to go to this club and to that club, but no, at this stage I'm really not sure what's happening.
His teammate Reggie Smith was selected in the All-Star team, which was headed by the Tigers' Andrew Gaze, who won his 4th NBL Most Valuable Player award. Falcons captain Butch Hayes was also named in the 2nd All-Star team.
This is a classroom for third-year students from the University of New South Wales. Although they're studying mining engineering, it's the first time many of them have been in an underground colliery. The move to a hands-on classroom was made possible through a unique agreement between Power Coal and the university.
This way, the students, instead of just sitting in a lecture theatre in the University of New South Wales, are here in an active learning centre.
Power Coal has supplied these former mine houses for accommodation and classrooms, but most importantly for the students, it's made available its operating mine at YE for training purposes.
There are a number of universities that have defunct mines or access to old workings, but they're static situations, whereas this is dynamic. The students go down with the shift, they follow the shift in, they see all active components of the operation.
Mining engineering is really sort of a practical course. If you don't know what it's like to actually be under there, if you don't talk to the workers, you can't really understand what it's truly like.
There are some 120 undergraduates studying mining engineering at the University of New South Wales. According to Professor Jim Galvin, all are guaranteed a job, with mining engineers in great demand.
These students will come out and their real benefit will be they'll be up and running with where industry's at to and where it needs to go.
Last week, 51-year-old Jill Reid underwent life-saving triple bypass surgery, one of 5,000 patients on the hospital's records. Tomorrow she's going home, grateful to doctors and staff at Lake Macquarie Private for her quick recovery.
I was a bit apprehensive because, being a private hospital, I thought our major surgery should be done in a bigger hospital, but I have no regrets at all.
We can deliver the same care that is typically associated with either larger institutions or bigger metropolitan areas such as Sydney, and the care can be delivered at a high standard that is seen elsewhere.
It's a view shared by the Australian Private Hospitals Association, which has hailed the centre as the country's best private facility under 100 beds. The $12 million hospital is the only one-stop shop for private heart surgery between Sydney and the Queensland border. It also caters for other major surgical procedures.
And I think that that's the other key issue, that we are providing a higher level of care across the board rather than just specifically with cardiac patients.
The message spread by Zebra Crossing and her helper was clear.
Don't take it for granted that people are going to stop for you in motor cars, because a lot of times they don't.
Jaywalking is a risky practice. The road safety campaign aimed at reducing the state's alarming fatality figures. On New South Wales roads last year, 129 pedestrians were killed, more than 1,000 were seriously injured. In the Hunter and Mid-North Coast, around 25 deaths were recorded.
People have become a little bit impatient and try to cross roads rather than wait a few more seconds and do it with safety. They think another couple of seconds, no big problem, they'll just dart out in front of a car, the car will see them, or they'll sidestep the vehicle.
Crossing the road illegally can result in a $40 fine, and it's not only pedestrians that have to watch where they're going, motorists are also being warned.
And be aware that just because a pedestrian's walking with his back to you at the moment doesn't mean he's not suddenly going to step out in front of the vehicle. You must be always aware of your surroundings.
It's scenes like this on the Gold Coast that police don't want repeated in the Newcastle area. Students pushing the limits after consuming too much alcohol.
Sometimes they get out there, there's too much alcohol intake, and they become rather antisocial in their behaviour.
The pubs too are clamping down on underage drinking. Students are trying to trick hotel workers with slick fake IDs.
It's something that we have to be very, very careful of and aware of, and the kids need to know that they can't come in here if they're under 18.
They can have as much fun as they like, provided it doesn't infringe on the safety or the fun of other people in the community.
Historically, students let their hair down before and after their final year exams. Earlier this week, at least 3 pubs in the Newcastle CBD shut their doors for several hours to keep out gangs of students. But underage drinking isn't the only problem for pub owners. There are heavy new fines for serving intoxicated people. It's a grey area, but the publicans say it's not worth taking the risk. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
38-year-old Kay Thomas was found dead in this Torres unit in Hamilton in February. She died as a result of a serious assault in which she suffered head injuries. Her de facto husband, 47-year-old Brett Carlson, has pleaded guilty to her manslaughter. In a videotape interview with police shown to Newcastle Supreme Court today, Carlson told how the pair had had an argument. He said, "She was nagging me, alleging I was playing up." He said the argument had snowballed and that's when Miss Thomas was injured as he defended himself. He said he had called 000 for an ambulance because Miss Thomas was cold and he couldn't wake her. She was as cold as ice. When asked about the numerous bite marks on her body, Carlson said they were love bites. In the 12 hours before Kay Thomas died, she and Brett Carlson had been drinking heavily. Police found 3 casks of wine in the unit, and when they arrested Carlson, he was obviously intoxicated. The Crown accepted Carlson's plea of manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. Justice David Hunt will continue hearing evidence tomorrow. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
It was back to surfing dribble today at her home break of Merewether in Newcastle after surfing some 2-metre plus waves in the world titles in France.
We got the tail end of a cyclone and we had like 8-foot waves and they were almost crashing up onto the road. So they called it off for 2 days and reopened it again and sent the women out for their heats.
In one heat, Lisa was the only surfer to get through the break. Lisa won the world title in 1993 in the World Cup in New Zealand last year, so it's not such a big thrill to win the world title again in 1995.
Although it's a great achievement and it's something that you'll never forget, there's always a next one coming up.
Her win puts her up there with the sporting greats, and at just 24 years old, there's plenty more titles to win yet. Apart from some gusty winds, it was near perfect weather for a round of golf, and 264 players made the most of it. A mixture of pros and amateurs took to the Merewether course. The pros were chasing a purse of $8,000. There were some famous names having a hit. And not so famous. This is the first in 4 days of Pro-Ams. The competition moves from here to Maitland tomorrow and then on to the main event at Branxton over the weekend. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
"18-foot skiffs are the fastest single-hulled sailing craft in the world, reaching speeds in excess of 50 kilometres an hour. And they don't always need outsiders to make life interesting, often doing it themselves. Newcastle could well be treated to such action on Sunday afternoon. Joining the fray will be James Hardy, skippered by local Darren Nicholson. It was to be christened on the harbour today, but the blustery conditions caused a change of plans.
I think if we'd gone out in this breeze today, things would have let go and break. The safety margin's not always that high, so probably have a quiet afternoon having a drink at the brewery would be nice.
Darren's brother Chris will be at the helm of Skilled Engineering, while John Boyd in Mediterranean Shipping Company makes up the local trio. A winner of the Sydney Cup, Boyd will launch his skiff on Sunday morning and is confident of a good summer ahead. field of around 70 pros, including yesterday's winner of the Newcastle event, Brad King, battled the blustery conditions. Those with the earlier tee times were more fortunate, recording some of the better scores, among them Martin Peterson and Paul Riley, who were the clubhouse leaders for much of the day after shooting 68s. The circuit moves to Branxton tomorrow for the richest pro-am outside the metropolitan area, the $20,000 Oakbridge tournament. Darren Chivers and Kathy Stoltz will return to defend their titles, with the tournament having raised $40,000 for the rescue helicopter service in the last 7 years. To athletics, and Newcastle's Clinton Macavicius and the Central Coast Martin Dent have been selected in Australia's three-man junior team for the World Cross Country Championships in South Africa next March. Macavicius was training alongside Australia's senior representative today, Wayne Larden. Coached by David Rundle, the teenager has received a travel sponsorship from Garden City, enabling him to make the trip.
The Wattagan Centre, previously known as Carinya Oaks, is a privately run hostel for people with intellectual disabilities or mental illness.
It's been a dumping ground for people with disabilities exiting institutions for the past 20 to 30 years, and it's been a disgrace that governments have allowed it to happen.
John Jacobson has welcomed the news that the hostel, which is licensed by the Department of Ageing and Disability, will close. It was in the news in 1993 when a female resident was strangled by another. Until this year, it housed more than 150 residents with an inadequate number of staff.
Everything about the place concerned us. It was located in an isolated position. The conditions inside of the centre were absolutely abysmal. Dickensian is the only way you could describe it.
In May, the Hunter Mission agreed to provide services to residents, increasing staff levels and activities. However, the number of residents has dwindled, threatening the hostel's viability as a business. The department has decided to remove the residents. Temporary accommodation has been organised for the 83 remaining residents. They'll move out on Monday. Some residents will be moved to a disused defence building in Stockton before they can be moved to permanent accommodation.
The residents from the centre will be going to 20 community houses right throughout New South Wales, and they'll be provided with appropriate support within those houses.
And how much does it cost per night to stay?
It was a busy first away fixture for Craig Carter, who was forced to make several crucial saves to keep the Breakers in the match. But his luck ran out in the 62nd minute when Brad Maloney eventually found the back of the net for a 1-0 lead. The home side secured the win 4 minutes from time. Francis Awaratifi left unchecked and finished in style. All came through the match unscathed and should be fit for Wednesday's home encounter with West Adelaide. In the Youth League, Marconi beat the Breakers 2-0. In the solo bikes, Craig Watson started well by winning his heat, but came undone in the final trying to emulate the performance. In doing so, he took out a disgruntled Jack Stevens, who was later awarded the race. Not to be outdone, the Formula 500s provided their own entertainment. Dave Baxter wouldn't have had any problems looking for a spare tyre, finding one on his lap during the heats. Brian Phillips was the first of many who attempted to defy gravity, but his test was nothing compared with Paul Armand's effort in the final. Armand escaped serious injury in the rollover, with the race finally won by Roy Urpeth. The V8 sedans also tested each other's patience, with Maitland's Stu Robinson coming to grief trying to avoid a stalled John Pine in a heat of the Stars Dash. In the final, Australian champion Ron Pine put in a strong bid, but it was his brother John who took the checkered flag and the lead in the Top Gun series.